Good morning. Welcome to Kailul Baker. There was once an elderly Jewish lady standing on a street corner in Brooklyn. And every person that passed by, she said, "Excuse me, you read Yiddish?" "What? Excuse me, you speak Yiddish?" And she said, "No, sorry, I don't." And she waited a little longer, and someone else comes by. "Excuse me, you speak Yiddish?" And this is going on and on. "Do you speak Yiddish? Do you speak Yiddish?" Finally, after a whole morning of asking, "Do you speak Yiddish?" Someone says, "Yes, I do. Wie kann ich euch helfen? How can I help you?" And she says, "Excuse me, what time is it?" In Chumash Devarim, which we begin this week, Moshe Rabbeinu talks to the Yidden before he passes away. He understands that as much as he wants to go into Eretz Yisrael with the Jewish people and lead them into the Promised Land, it's not Hashem's plan. And Hashem is not ready for him to go into Eretz Yisrael just yet. So he gathers all the Jewish people and he's going to speak to them and tell them messages, reminders, we'll call it a little bit criticism, warnings, because they're going to go on, he's not going to go with them, and he has to make sure that they behave properly. And this is how this Chumash begins. Eila hadvarim, these are the words. It's probably the longest speech that a rabbi ever gave. It took several weeks to address the Jewish people. And in this opening psukim, these opening verses of this speech, Torah tells us, Moshe began Be'ir es ha-Torah hazais. Hayil Moshe began to explain this Torah. Now, if you read the words, he began to explain this Torah, you wonder, where was he for the last 40 years? Torah was given 40 years ago. Now you're coming to explain it? What was he doing till now? Obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching us. He was telling us everything that's going on. We were keeping the Torah. We were even arguing about the Torah all these decades. So what does it mean that now he's coming to explain it? Well, we didn't understand it till now. And the answer is that Be'er here means litargem. He came to translate it. Moshe went to translate the Torah at this stage, something which up until that point, Torah was only in Lashon Kodesh. It was only in Hebrew. Okay? Torah was only said in the Holy Tongue. And before Moshe Rabbeinu passes away, he starts to translate the Torah. Moshe translated the Torah in not one language or two languages, in 70 languages. It's something which many people don't realize. Every language that we have today is an outcome of the 70 main languages. There are 70 main nations and 70 languages, and the nations that we have today come from them, and the languages that we have come from them. So even if there are more modern languages or changes.
What about tribal languages in Africa?
It's a great point. Even tribal languages, they come from these original languages. They're an offshoot, a modification, a modern version. Sounds funny to say modern with tribal, but it really is. It's a result of something, of a prior language that existed. And Moshe Rabbeinu went and translated the entire Torah into these 70 languages. Rashi tells us, B'shivim Lashon, with 70 languages, he explained it to them. And the question is why? The Yidden are here. We know Hebrew. We understand the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to us. What's the reason and what's the point to take the time, the effort, especially when literally his time is limited, and he's going to start to translate Torah into 70 different languages? For what's the reason? So one answer is that it really fits with the theme of Chumash Devarim. What's going on in Chumash Devarim? We have a preparation for the next stage of the Jewish journey. Up until that point, we live in the desert. Everything is spiritual. Everything is beautiful. We're having a great time with experiencing spirituality for the most part, and everything is good. But now we're going into Eretz Yisrael. Now we're going into the Holy Land, and things are going to be drastically different. We're going to have to work. We're not going to just sit there and have food come down from heaven. In English, that means your bills don't get automatically paid. You have to show up. You have to work the land. You have to try hard. There's failures. There's successes. It's not simple. And as a result, Moshe felt it's possible that the people will stray a little bit from this seriousness or devotion to Torah, and they may not even know Hebrew that well. And the suffering and the pain and the hardships bring about so many side effects. So as a result, he said, let me translate this into all the languages, so whatever Yidden end up being, and however the language of their soul, so to speak, Torah should reach them. Okay? So Moshe Rabbeinu is foreseeing what may happen with the following generation, and just as he's preparing us to go into Eretz Yisrael without him, similarly he's preparing us for the challenges that lay ahead. And that's really what, by the way, this happened on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. It's funny, we're learning this now, we're in Chodesh Av, in the summer months, but really it took place in the winter. And it's on Rosh Chodesh Shvat that Moshe Rabbeinu began to translate it. And this day, when he did it, is very important because he showed us that Torah will reach you wherever you are. Even if you're in a situation where you don't even speak Hebrew, or it's foreign to you, or you did and you forgot it because of what life was doing to you, still, Torah is in your language, translated by Moshe himself, not like a bad translation or, he couldn't find the right word. Moshe was doing it, and he allowed Torah to reach to all of these languages, all 70 roots of these, any type of language which will exist in the future. So Moshe is thinking ahead, like any good leader. But the issue here is, what about the immediate benefits? Was there any reason why Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking to these people and telling them Torah in these languages? Yes, for the future. But maybe it's a little bit disheartening when Moshe Rabbeinu is saying goodbye, and he's basically telling us things are going to be rough. You're going to need many languages to understand this Torah, because you're not going to end up sticking through just in Hebrew. It's very possible that the suffering and the expulsions and the tragedies of Golus will take you away from the original Hebrew. Why say that? Why not motivate? Why not encourage? Why not excite? Yes, we have some warnings, but when you take the whole Torah and you translate it in multiple languages for the purpose that we should be able to survive, and you're talking to a nation in the desert, it's not very nice to say, okay, guys, it's going to be hard. Why would you do that? So because of that, I want to share another explanation of why Moshe Rabbeinu is translating Torah as an important thing, as a farewell talk to the Yidden, translating Torah, explaining it in 70 different languages. Okay, so where we are now, the basic explanation is because we're going to need it. We're not always going to be able to work with Hebrew. We're going to stray. We're going to end up as we are today. Not, many Jews don't know Hebrew. It's no fault of their own. But it wasn't the original, let's just say, plan, the way things were set up. We were living in Israel. We were learning Torah. We had a community, a very strong Jewish nation. And then because of terrible steps in our history, we end up in situations where we don't speak Hebrew, understand Hebrew at all. It could be generations. We have here a siddur translated in Russian. There's even a siddur on the other side in Braille. Every language, for anyone that may, should be able to read, to daven, to learn. But the concept is, though, Braille is not a good example, but the other languages are in order that we should be able to learn it, whatever situation we're at. English, Russian, all languages.
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere.
So here's another explanation why Moshe Rabbeinu translated it. I want to give an introduction. It's a very common mistake that people make, and it's an assumption which is wrong. Yiddishkeit, Judaism in general, is not a proselytizing religion. We're not here to get everyone to become Jewish. If you're Jewish, we want you to get closer to Yiddishkeit. We want you to access your heritage, learn about your Torah, learn about your relationship with Hashem. But as a rule, we're not out there seeking converts. If somebody wants to convert and they're sincere, we'll accept them, with open arms. But if they're not, we don't have a mission or a goal. And to put it in other words, we don't view the world or any people as not good enough because they're not Jewish. And our goal is not to make them Jewish. Torah is for the Jewish people. However, although we're not looking to make them Jewish, there's a part of Torah which we view as a moral code for society. And those parts of Torah we want the whole world to know, to learn, and to recognize. So these parts of Torah, known as the 7 Noahide laws, Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, is God's code of ethics that he wants the whole world to know, and he wants us to help them know that. And we have here in the Rambam, which we're finishing very soon, the entire Rambam, and the chapter 9, which we're learning these days in Hilchos Melachim, the final volume of the Rambam, he says that there are 6 things that Adam Rishon was commanded on. There are 6 commandments. Adam Rishon was not receiving the Torah, wasn't obligated like any Jew would be into keeping certain mitzvahs. However, Hashem gave him 6 things, 6 commandments.
To who?
Adam, very first person. Avodah Zarah, he says, idol worship, can't worship idols. Al Birchas Hashem, you can't curse Hashem. Murder, adultery, stealing, theft, and judgment. You should have a system of judgment. Okay, so in other words, civilization. Have a normal, civilized life. Don't kill, don't steal, don't worship idols, have a system of judgment, no adultery, and so on. Noach, after the flood, Hashem gave him another mitzvah, a 7th one, and that is Ever Menachai. You can't break off a limb of a living animal and eat it. You have to respect the animal. Make sure you're not giving the animal pain. You can't just go and eat it. So in total, there's 7. It's got nothing to do with being Jewish. It has to do with being a human in God's world. So there's an element of Torah which Hashem does want the rest of the world to do. While we're not looking to convert them per se, but we do want them to live in a certain way. And it's not so hard, not so much to ask for. It's seven things. Okay, so Moshe Rabbeinu commanded this in the name of Hashem, that all mankind should follow these seven laws. And it's our responsibility as Jewish people to do what we can that the world should follow in these 7 Noahide laws, in ways that would be possible, in ways that would be appropriate, in ways that would be effective. But we have to do that. The Tosfos Yom Tif brings that the way to do this is to explain or share with humanity the concept of Tselem Elikim. Tselem Elikim means that we are created in the divine image, in God's image. And a person should recognize their preciousness. Don't see yourself as, oh, I don't matter. Whatever I do, who cares? I'm not that important, or I'm not part of a religion of some sort, whatever it may be. A person should recognize that because I am created in Hashem's image, I'm special, I'm precious, and I have to conduct my life the way that my Creator wants me to conduct it. I do matter. I'm here for a purpose. Very good. So the purpose is to make this world a better place. In the context of, and everyone could do that in whatever situation they're in some way. And I'll tell you more than that, that what you could do, nobody else could do. It's your unique mission. We should never think, oh, someone else will do it if I don't do it. There's always something that you, with your personal gifts and your situation and where you are, that only you can contribute to the world. The concept of these 7 Noahide laws, says the Tosfos Yom Tif, is when a person realizes, or when we teach others about Tselem Elikim. So in Yiddishkeit, live and let live is not a Jewish thing. Who cares about the rest of the world? We do our part, we follow our rules, and whatever happens, happens. No. We do care about the rest of the world. We're responsible for the rest of the world, and we have to do whatever is in our power to make sure that the world is living in some type of civilized manner. Now, just because you walk in the street with a sign, or you demonstrate, it may not have any effect. But there's got to be some way that we could impact the world in a positive way, particularly with keeping these 7 Noahide laws. And the Rebbe stresses this, and he says in volume 15 of Likutei Sichos that we need to appreciate that we have the ability to influence the rest of the world. There is a way to do this. Okay, when a person knows that he's beloved, or as mentioned before, cherished, precious, because he's created in Hashem's image, that helps him to have more a sense of value of oneself, and therefore want to behave better. Now, unfortunately, throughout history, yes, we were living all over the world, in all different places, but it wasn't exactly so simple to start telling the locals of how they should behave. More often than not, we were persecuted. No one wanted to hear from us any opinions. All we could do was show by example, but it was very, very difficult. We live in a time today that we do have, thankfully, a better opportunity to influence the world, to have a voice in this 21st century, in the country of kindness, the land of kindness. We're able to, in some ways, influence and show and really teach the importance of living a life with morals and ethics and recognizing there's a God to this world. This is why Moshe Rabbeinu translated Torah in 70 languages, because there's parts of Torah which applies to all humankind. Yes, Torah as a whole, its laws and so on. We're not looking to get the world to keep Shabbos or to keep kosher. And they don't have to. They shouldn't. But we are looking to get them to keep 7 laws and keep them fully and keep them with an appreciation that there's a God. We're doing this. Why? Because Hashem is in charge of this world. He created this world, and he says, don't kill, don't steal, and so on and so forth. And it's very important. And you may ask the question, why do we need God when it comes to morality? Okay? Any civilized person understands that killing is not good. Okay? Or if we're all going to steal, we're going to have this survival of the fittest, it's not going to work out. It's going to be a jungle. Right? People understand that there's some kind of conduct you have to have. Why is it important that we bring this in a manner and we say, oh, it has to be because God said so? It's interesting. It's many societies will tell you, we don't do this because God said so, but we want to live. I don't want to get killed, so I'm not going to kill. We're all going to agree on this common law that everyone accepts. And here in Torah, we come and say, it's Torah, it's divine based, God is telling us, and it's so important. Why is it so important that it comes from Hashem? The main thing is they do it. You want a civilized world? Let's make sure that governments are civilized. Let's make sure they have a system of judgment. Let's make sure they're fair. Why do you have to say that it's from God? There's a story about the Baal Shem Tov. He was traveling with his students, and they're going along some dirt road. And as they're traveling, they see another wagon coming in the opposite direction. So the Baal Shem Tov tells his coachman, Alexei, to stop the wagon. He gets out, and he goes over to this person in the other wagon, clearly a wealthy man, and they have an exchange, and then another exchange, and Baal Shem Tov comes back, and he's ready to go on. Now, some of his students were very curious. Who's this hidden tzaddik? And Baal Shem Tov stopped in the middle of the road. They just happened to cross paths. He gets out of the wagon, they have this exchange, and they continue moving. So they followed him. A couple of his students got out, and they found this man, and they said, tell us, what did the Baal Shem Tov tell you? So he said, well, why do you ask? Because we have to know. And he was uncomfortable, but after a little pressure, he's told them the story. I have a best friend, he says, since childhood, really, really good friends. And went to school together. We got married and moved not far from each other. We started raising a family, each our families. And one day the wheel of fortune turned and he lost a lot of money. And he decided he's going to go on a business trip and try to find his luck. So he told his wife goodbye and he left. It was going to be for a year. And it was a long year. He missed his wife, his children. And finally, after the year is up, he comes back and he was successful. He had a pouch with a lot of money. Gold, and it was a valuable pouch, and it really showed what he did the last year. And he comes home, and all of his friends heard in the shtetl that he's back. My best friend is here. I also came to see him. We come to his house, and everyone's sitting around, and they're talking, and they're eating some refreshments and welcoming him, and he's telling them about the trip. And I, as a good friend that was very comfortable in his house, I walked into the kitchen, and I see on the table the pouch is there. So I told myself, my friend, he's out of his mind. A year he spent away from his family. It's not responsible. You just left the pouch there. Let me teach this guy a lesson. Let me take this pouch. Thank you. It's the dramatization of the story when it gets cut off a middle. Let me take this pouch. I'll hide it for a little bit and teach him a lesson. Not to leave his money around. Anyone could have taken it. He's lucky I took it. So I took the pouch. I put it in my pocket. I walked to my house. And I figured in a few minutes, when I got back to the house, to his house, pandemonium broke up. Everyone was screaming and shouting. It was like, where's the pouch? Where's the money? And before I knew it, he fainted. And they revive him. And he's sick. He's weak. And they're looking for this pouch. I couldn't bring myself to give it to him. I was so embarrassed. Everyone's around. And where's the money? And we're searching and looking. And someone stole it. Who was it? Who was in the house? And I'm going to come and say, whoops, I just wanted to teach you a lesson. I couldn't do it. So I figured I'll go home. Things will calm down soon. And then I'll give him the money. But things didn't calm down. And he was getting sick, and they called the doctor, and they were looking, and he was in bed. I just couldn't do it. What are people going to think of me if I come and give the money now? It's really bad. So then a week went by, and I decided, you know what I should do? Instead of holding onto this money, let me go. I'll invest it, and then I'll make extra money, and I'll bring him his money back plus all the interest, and that'll be like a compensation for the pain I caused him. So I decided to do so. Now I can't invest it locally because where did I get all this money from? And my friend's money is missing, and I was there. So I figured I'll go on a trip. I'm on my trip now. And as I'm going, Baal Shem Tov stopped me, and he said, go back and return the money. And I said, I can't. They're not going to believe me. They're going to say I'm a thief. Baal Shem Tov said, I promise you they'll believe you. Go back and give the money. And I turned around, and I'm on my way back home. The problem with morality that's not based on godliness is that you use your own rationalization. You start to say, this case is different. I am an exception. I'm allowed to steal because. Or it's true that something is forbidden, but for me, in my situation, it's different. So you could agree with a general moral code. You could agree that that's ethical or immoral, unethical if you don't behave that way. But at the same time, you're telling yourself that there's this exception to the rule. Or my mind, my logic tells me that for me, I'm allowed to. If your laws that you're doing, your Sheva mitzvahs, your 7 Noahide laws are because God said so, then your mind can't play games with you and say you're different. Because God didn't say you're different. He said you have to keep to it. Even if it's inconvenient. Even if no one's going to find out. Even if you really, really need the money. Right? He didn't make an exception for you. If it's rational, if it's a decision that society decided one thing today, and tomorrow they change their mind because it's more acceptable. So morals change, right? Relative morality. But when it's based on Hashem, when it's based on Torah, then there's no changing. He said so. And then it'll last. Then it'll truly be a moral world. Okay? It's when we decide for ourselves with our own minds, then we change our mind when it's convenient. And unfortunately, our mind plays tricks on us and tells us that we're not being dishonest or immoral. This is moral. Because the world I live in, I need to do this in order to succeed. Or in the case of this story, I want to teach him a lesson. I'm doing him a favor. So stealing is not allowed. But in this case, I'm right. It's called in Hasidic terminology, it's called Kabbalas Ol. You're accepting the yoke. I'm doing it because he said so. And it's not going to change where I live. It's not going to change in how great the need is or how difficult it is to be. Okay. The Malbim talks about a similar concept. The Malbim was from 1809 to 1879 in Ukraine. Has a tremendous commentary on Torah. He was actually offered to be the chief rabbi of New York, which he rejected. But his fame spread, and even in 1800s, early 1800s, so far. He says like this, that Avram, when Pari asked him, why did you lie about your wife and say that is your sister? So he said, I said that there's no fear of Hashem in this place, and they'll kill me for my wife. Now, he's not saying you guys have no morals. He's saying that you guys are changing your mind, what you consider to be okay. In your case, oh, it's the king. I'll give it to the king. I can't rely on people, he said, for their morality. You guys don't believe in a God. So I'm not safe over there. Right? He's saying, because there's no Yiras Elikim, because there's no fear of heaven, therefore, I said they're going to kill me. Well, why? If you don't believe in God, you're going to kill people? Avraham Avinu was telling them, I couldn't trust your morality of Egypt, which was the most immoral place at the time. You don't believe in any God, in God. You guys just run your own show. So today you think it's good, it's nice. I'm a foreigner. I don't get the same rules. Right? Or for F.R.E.E, it's different. That's the issue. The Malbim explains that when it comes to morality, if it's based on logic, it's a very weak foundation. Let's go into dangerous territory for a moment. The Germans, they were very civilized, cultured people. Okay, in a sense, they're even described as the most advanced in culture to a great degree. Yet, when it came to the Holocaust, they committed the worst of the worst. And these are not, maybe they are crazy people. Okay, we're talking about what seems to be cultured, civilized, whether it's music, whether it's other areas of culture. Find that culture and quote civilization and high society didn't work when it came to morality. They made an exception. They said, "Oh, for the Jews, it doesn't count." You know, they changed their mind. How could it be? A whole nation, hundreds of thousands of people, right, behaved in such a way because culture and education, all of these beautiful things, when it comes to morality, if it's not based on Hashem, if it's not founded in Torah, you're not secure that it'll last. Tomorrow you'll make an exception. If the only way you make an exception is what Torah says is an exception, right? Then you're safe, or you could hope to be safe. And let's be clear. Unfortunately, you have a lot of terrible things that were done even by people that did believe or thought they believed, right? There's no righteous one in the world who does good and doesn't sin. Even good people make mistakes, or worse than mistakes. We're not saying that the other way around is perfect. But if you're going to have your Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, your 7 Noahide laws based on morality, based on rationale and logic, it's not going to work. Moshe Rabbeinu comes and translates the Torah to the Jewish people before he passes away in 70 languages to make sure that Torah reaches every single culture and civilization, every nation that will ever be, every language that will ever be spoken. Torah was said in that language so it could reach them, so that they should be able to follow 7 basic laws, and they're not hard. Hopefully, most countries already keep to them. But Moshe wants it to be from a Torah way. There's a fascinating talk from the Rebbe from 1981. President Reagan was shot with another 3 people. They were leaving some speaking engagement in Washington, and they were shot. And the Rebbe spoke, and the Rebbe said, how could this happen? And what needs to be done to prevent it for the future? In other words, this type of behavior. And the Rebbe says like this: it comes from a result, I'll say it in English, translation. The reason a person can come to perpetuate such an act is because they're not permeated with faith as they should be. Faith. What do we mean by faith? By this we mean the simple faith that there's a creator and master to the world who observes the actions of every individual. We're not talking about religion. We're talking about faith that there's a creator, and this creator cares about what I do. Any religion could agree to that. You're not coming and saying, make them Jewish. You're not coming and saying, cause them to be semi-Jewish. Just believe, simple faith, that there's a God who watches. There's a control to this world. It's not a jungle. That's all. And that, if we could get that into the education system, if we could inculcate that into people, it'll be a better place. Okay? It doesn't mean that it's easy, but that makes a tremendous difference. That's the idea of fear of heaven. What does fear of heaven think? Right? The Mishnah says, "Istakal b'shleisha dvarim." Look at three things, and you won't come to sin. Know what's above you, an eye that sees, a ear that hears, and everything that you do is written in the book. What's this concept? Always remember that there's a God, and Hashem is watching, listening, and recording. And it matters. Today it's very easy to understand that. There's recording devices everywhere, right? But that's how we have morals and ethics, and how we get the world to do that. Recognize that there's an Eibishter, right? Rabbi Chia bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan in Gemara Baba Kama that Hashem doesn't hold back reward from any creature, even for speaking pleasantly. A person knows, any creature, it's not about Jewish, not Jewish, anybody, any human being. You speak nicely about someone else, Hashem rewards you. You're kind, Hashem gives you reward. And it's not just about reward, it's recognizing that someone is in charge and he wants things to be in a certain way, and it's human nature that it makes a difference. It helps us. Right? The Gemara in Brachas, Daf Chav Ches, tells us that before Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, before Rabbi Yechanan passed away, his students told him, "Bless us before you go." What's the blessing he gave them? Okay, just put it into context. You have a great sage, an author of the Mishnah, who's one of the authors, whose students, disciples, are very holy, learned people, and they're asking him for a blessing before he passes away. Okay, this is, let's say, his final word. What does he give them? He tells them, "Yehi Ratzain," get this, "you should fear heaven the way you fear people." And they were offended. Like, really? That's what you think of us? We fear heaven because Hashem said so. We do what Hashem wants because it's the right thing. Let's fear this, fear that. And he said, "Levi, I wish that you should, he says it like this. If we feared Hashem in the same way that we fear people, a person looks around and says, 'Oh, Hugh, nobody saw me.' Like a person does something wrong, they get scared for a moment, but then they realize that nobody saw them. And they have this like relief. And he says, I want you to fear Hashem the way you fear humans." What is he saying? These are holy people. These are good people. But human nature is that if you recognize that there's a God who's watching and it matters what you do, it's easier to do the right thing. It's a fact. And if we have a attitude that Hashem created the world and he wants us to behave in a certain way, not because we understand it, not because it's civil, not because that's the right thing, it is all of the above, but it changes everything in the way we behave. There are 12 verses, 12 psukim, that the Rebbe encouraged that that children should learn by heart. Okay, and it's great for adults too. And one of them, which is brought in Tanya, and it's from Gemara, V'hine Hashem nitzav alav, the verse says that a person should know that Hashem is standing above you, U'meloi chol ha'aretz k'veidai, and the entire world is filled with his glory, and he looks at him and searches his reins and heart to see if he's serving him appropriately. Hashem, remember that he's above us, watching us, and searching that we should do the right thing. Some people say this part of Tanya, it's chapter 41, every morning before davening, to like recalibrate. Remember that Hashem is watching me, and if I keep that in mind, then I'll be making the right decisions. I'll be doing the right things the way I'm supposed to do. Okay, and this is a concept I believe in America as well, right? It was founded on the idea there's one God, there's an Eibishter. And if we bring that out and we recognize that this is the key, and this is what Moshe Rabbeinu found important to do, even though it could be a little bit dejecting for the Jewish people at that time. Why are you telling us about other languages? We all speak Hebrew. Why do you feel that things are going to be bad when we get into Eretz Yisrael, difficult? But Moshe felt that for the sake of the world, and more than for the sake of the world, our responsibility as Jewish people here is to make sure that the world lives that way in ways that we can, by example, by talking about it, each person in whatever capacity they have, to make sure to spread this idea of 7 Noahide laws with the banner that we do it because Hashem said so. Not because we want a good humanity, but because Hashem said so. And when he says to do something, and we do it not because it makes sense, even when it doesn't make sense. Thank you. Questions?
Mishkaya.
Comments?
How long was Moses with Hashem?
So Moshe lived for 120 years, day to day. Born on the 7th of the other and passed away on the 7th of other.
I assume those 70 translations weren't written down.